So thank you all for being here today and for all the important work that you do every day to support students across California. My name is Mindy Vank, and I'm an analyst with the local educational agency Medical Billing Option Program, also known as LEBOP Policy and Fiscal Unit. And so the purpose of this check-in is to provide clarity on CRCS instructions, forms, and answer questions that will assist local educational agencies, also known as LEAs, with completing and submitting their CRCS. And so the check-in slides were sent via e-blast through the listserv before this afternoon. And so I hope you receive them, and they will also soon be available on the LEBOP training website. And if you did not receive the e-blast, for some reason you can't locate it, there is a link in the chat as well. So I'd like to begin with introductions, acknowledging the rest of the LEBOP staff who are present today from the Department of Healthcare Services and our consultants at Guidehouse. So thank you all for being here today and for your ongoing dedication to the program. If you have any questions during today's check-in, we recommend that you hold on to them, as some of them may be answered as we go through the slides today. We will be taking verbal questions at the end, and so you will have a chance to raise your hand after we go through the slides today, where you can ask your questions during the live Q&A. If you would like to submit a question, you can utilize the Q&A feature by clicking on the Q&A icon, as you can see on the right of the graphic. And this icon is on your tools bar, and it can be identified with a question mark. This is something new that we are trying out to better track questions that come through. If your questions are not addressed during today's check-in, please send your questions to the LEA inbox at lea@dhcs.california.gov. And so live captions are available for anyone who needs them. The graphic on this slide highlights the steps to enable live captions with arrows pointing to each option in Teams. To turn on captions, click the More icon in your Teams toolbar, select Language and Speech, and then choose Show Live Captions. Captions will appear in the bottom panel of the meeting. So today we will go through 4 main areas. 1, review of meeting logistics. 2, a quick reminder of the due date and available resources. 3, an overview of some recently asked questions on the fiscal year 2024-25 form. And 4, a discussion of next steps that will help you prepare to submit your CRCS. So for those that attended the CRCS check-in meeting last year, this will be similar to that, where we are going to operate under the same ground rules, which are laid out on this slide here. 1, these check-ins are meant to be guided forms that provide an opportunity to ask questions. So although there will be a meeting agenda based on submitted questions, all attendees are free to ask other questions as time permits. 2, participation in these meetings is optional, and so you can join if you have questions or just want to listen to questions that are asked by others. 3, if we can't answer a question today because we need to research or would like to discuss the response before providing an answer, we will respond to you via email after today's meeting. 4, and lastly, we are going to try and not answer specific scenarios in today's check-in meeting. We do this because the department sets policies, but we do not know the details on specific scenarios or systems. So we encourage LEAs to take the guidance that is provided and use that guidance to make decisions when completing your CRCS. As for the meeting logistics, this is the only general check-in meeting that DHCS is planning to hold for the fiscal year 2024-25 CRCS. A second meeting will take place on February 11 from 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. And content for that meeting will be limited to reporting Children and Youth Behavioral Health Initiative, also known as CYBHI fee schedule payments, on the fiscal year 2024-25 CRCS. So there is no need to join that meeting if your LEA did not receive any CYBHI fee schedule payments for services rendered in fiscal year 2024-25. And if you're unsure if your LEA received those payments, you can check with your billing vendor if you use one, or the CYBHI fee schedule program team at the email provided here, dhcs.sbs@dhcs.california.gov. And finally, if you think of questions after today's call, you can submit them to the LEA inbox, and we'll help to respond back to you there to provide any clarification. So as far as resources go, the main CRCS webpage is found on the LEBOP website and will contain the documents you need to complete the CRCS. So this includes general information on the CRCS, including dates, the submission window, links to CDE information, such as the indirect cost rate and general CRCS resources. To find the documents that are relevant to fiscal year 2024 to 25, once uploaded, you will go to the main CRCS landing page. Once there, you will scroll down to the bottom of the page, and you'll see a section that says CRCS forms. Under that link will be the fiscal year 24 to 25 CRCS landing page. And so the CRCS form instructions, as well as the December CRCS training slides, were sent to the listserv on Monday, January 21st, 2026. So DHCS has provided resources 1 through 6, which are the fiscal year 2024-25 forms and instructions, the direct medical service percentage, certification and signature document, specialized medical transportation report, annual reimbursement report, and the federal medical assistance percentage, also known as FMAP grouping reimbursement percentages report via eBlast as well. And so once these reports are approved for publishing on the LEA-BOP website, we will send an e-blast to let LEAs know that they are posted online. So as far as resources 7 and 8, resource 7, which is the program administration withhold report, it is in the final review phase at DHCS, and so that will be posted onto our website soon. And we also hope to send this out via e-blast as well. For Resource 8, which is the CYBHI Fee Schedule Program Payment Report, it is still under review and will be posted on the website as soon as possible. Also, we plan to mail these out to LEAs that specifically have received the CYBHI Fee Schedule payments. So on December 18th, DHCS provided training on the fiscal year 2024-25 CRCS. The training slides were sent to the listserv on January 21st, along with the fiscal year 2024-25 template and the instructions, as mentioned previously. So in addition, the training video has been posted on the website, and the training is located by going to the LEA-BOP training link on the LEA-BOP homepage and looking under the link for fiscal year 2025-26 training materials. As reviewed on the previous slide, resources are posted to the LEA-BOP website under the cost and reimbursement comparison schedule link. So as mentioned previously, slides from today's check-in will also be posted under the website under the fiscal year 2025 to 26 LEA training material page. Now I would like to pass it over to Dana, who will cover the next section.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dana Ramos, and I am an analyst for the LEA-BOP policy and fiscal team. I'll go over some questions that have recently been asked on the fiscal year 2024 to 25 CRCS. We will be addressing 5 questions during today's check-in meeting, and then we'll have time for a Q&A afterwards. The questions that we're going over are 1, what is the documentation needed to support costs without claims? 2, can you explain the program administration withhold report and the impact on the CRCS? 3, what happens after my CRCS is submitted? 4, how do we amend a report after it was submitted? And 5, what should we expect if our CRCS is audited? So for question 1, what is the documentation needed to support costs without claims? If your LEA is considering adding costs to the CRCS when you don't have interim reimbursement for a practitioner type, or you have a very limited interim claims for a practitioner, you must be able to support these costs with documented LEA-BOP's covered services. On this slide, you'll see a series of questions to ask before practitioner costs are included on the CRCS. For example, did the practitioner meet the requirements to bill for LEA-BOP covered services as defined in the LEA-BOP Provider Manual? Was the practitioner appropriately licensed or credentialed per LEA-BOP requirements? Was there a recommendation, referral, or prescription in place from the appropriate practitioner? If the practitioner provided non-IEP treatment services, was a care plan in place that covered the services, or were the services an assessment and did not require a care plan? Was the practitioner supervised if necessary? Is there documentation of the supervision? Did they record services rendered in a portal or via hard copy? Did they document services as required for Medi-Cal billing purposes? Could your LEA readily locate supporting documentation? If you answer no to any of these questions, do not include these costs on the CRCS. For question number 2, can you explain the Program Administration Withhold Report and the impact on the CRCS? DHCS uses the CRCS to reconcile program administration withholds, which shifts the basis of reconciliation from claiming for interim reimbursement to total Medicaid payments. In terms of the legislative background, this change is driven by Assembly Bill 483, which was enacted into law in October 2023 and allows DHCS to collect up to 5% of total Medicaid payments allocable to LEAs for program administration costs. Prior to AB 483, the withholds were reconciled based on claims for interim reimbursement submitted by LEAs throughout the year. With the legislation being effective January 1st, 2024, the authorized withhold amount will now be calculated using the CRCS and total Medicaid payment. For the fiscal year 2024 to 25 CRCS, the collection is based on half of the LEA's annual Medi-Cal maximum reimbursable cost. This calculation is detailed in Worksheet A, specifically in row AD. This change aims to provide a more accurate and comprehensive reconciliation process, ensuring that withholds are aligned with the total payments rather than just claims for interim reimbursement. The Program Administration Withhold Report will also be available on the LEA BOP website once it is approved for publication. On the top of this slide, you are seeing a screenshot of the layout of the Program Administration Withhold Report. You will locate your LEA's NPI on the report and input the total amount withheld on CRCS Worksheet A, row AD, as seen on the bottom half of this slide. As you can see in our example, the sample LEA in the top row had $1,500 listed in the fiscal year 24 to 25 withhold report as being withheld from their claims payment. So when completing the CRCS, they will input $1,500 in row AD, total withhold amount collected in fiscal year 2024 to 25. This amount represents the total amount that was withheld from the LEA's interim reimbursement in fiscal year 24-25. Looking more closely at Worksheet A, line AC, you can see that it calculates the total authorized withhold amount at the 2% threshold that is being used for fiscal year 2024 to 25's total Medi-Cal maximum reimbursable cost. The calculation in row AE illustrates that the $1,500 actually withheld from interim paid claims was $130, more than what the LEA owed in withhold for fiscal year 2024 to 25. In this scenario, the LEA overpaid their portion of the withhold, so the $130 that was overcollected from claims payments will be paid back to the LEA in the final settlement. Please note that if the CRCS audit results in any changes to row Z, the total Medi-Cal maximum reimbursable cost, the total authorized withhold amount in line AC will be impacted, which will result in a different amount in row AE, the withhold to be collected from or refunded to the LEA. In question 3, what happens after I submit my CRCS? Once the CRCS is submitted, it will be screened for a series of intake tests. These are administrative in nature and include things such as making sure the submitted Excel overpayment or underpayment matches the amount on the electronic certification form, ensure that the required fields are not missing information, and ensure that all parts of the submission package have been included in the email. After the screening is done, the CRCS is either accepted or rejected. If it is accepted, a confirmation email is sent to the LEA contact person listed on the report. If it is rejected, the contact person will receive a notification of the reason why it was rejected and information on resubmitting. Once the CRCS is accepted, DHCS will begin the processing of reports according to their timeline. Note that because LEA claims have 1 year to be submitted, the processing of CRCS reports generally must not begin until the claim submission period has expired. For the fiscal year 24 to 25 CRCS reports, the 1-year claiming limits occurs in July 2026, so no reports are settled until the audit process has started for the fiscal year 24 to 25 CRCS reports. In any case, LEAs will either receive an interim settlement or a final settlement within 12 months of the CRCS due date or by February 28, 2027. When the settlement is an interim settlement, that CRCS will receive their final settlement within 18 months of CRCS submission date. So for the fiscal year 2024 to 25 CRCS, LEAs can expect final settlement by September 2027 at the latest. Question 4, how do we amend a report after it is submitted? If for some reason you need to amend your CRCS after it has been accepted by DHCS, you must alert DHCS at the email listed here, lea.crcs.submission@dhcs.ca.gov. This request must be in writing, and you should include the reason that you will need to update your CRCS. It is important that you do not just submit another report with a different date in the file name. That just creates questions as to which report to audit and more administrative tracking in the long run. DHCS understands that this happens occasionally and will respond to your request via email. Finally, question 5, what should we expect if the CRCS is audited? If you receive an entrance letter, your CRCS has been selected for an audit. This letter will be sent to the contact person on the report and will provide information on the expectations, timelines, and documentation requirements. If you have a billing vendor, many LEAs find it helpful to let their vendor know so that they can provide support during the audit process. The contact person listed on the Excel certification page will be the one to receive the entrance letter. Depending on the scope of the audit, DHCS may ask for additional documentation. Please work with your auditor to ensure that protected health information, or PHI, or personally identifiable information, also known as PII, is sent securely. DHCS can set up a folder on the secure MoveIt platform if that is helpful to ensure that correspondence and documentation is secure. We'd now like to give some time for some open questions. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or drop it in the Q&A feature.
So there's a question from Lori in regards to CYBHI reimbursement report. We are working to get that report sent out and published. So we'll be providing more information on that report and for those LEAs who participate in both programs in the next check-in meeting, which I believe is next week. So CYBHI report, will that be detailed to each LEA, not consortium? So it's going to be, so the report is going to be by the MPI of the LEA and the MPI of the practitioner who provided those services.
I just wanted to check in and see, you mentioned we sometimes have trouble because our files are so large, sending them in one email, like when we have the CRCS, the Bridget doc, all of that. How do we request, you just mentioned a secure folder and MoveIt. Who do we contact to get that set up?
I believe you can contact the submissions inbox. Right.
So that's the one
correct.
that, and we just ask for a secure folder and MoveIt, and then you'll create it or someone will create it for us.
Correct. That is the folder to our A&I team, and they'll work with you in regards to that submission.
Perfect. Thank you.
Also, Lori says the withholding report. So that we're in the final stages of trying to get that released as well. We'll most likely send it in our next e-blast. We're thinking of sending one probably tomorrow. And then I know a few individuals mentioned the certification document. We'll ensure to include that. Tiffany says, can we submit the forms using a secure link in Drive? I'd say work with that submissions inbox as well. That's probably the best, kind of what Pamela and I kind of discussed earlier. Desiree says that, so the following items will be uploaded to the DHS site soon, correct? And that is correct. So we're in the process of filing some withhold report. DMSP, we sent that out via an e-blast as well. The electronic certification page, we'll ensure to include that in our e-blast. These will be published. We're just in the process of publishing it. It's in the final stages. We're asked to make a few changes, and so hopefully they get published soon. Awesome. Any other questions? Great questions, by the way. Thank you all. Okay, if no other questions, we can move on. Thanks.
Thank you everyone for asking your questions. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to send them to the LEA BOP inbox. I will now pass it on to Mindy to wrap up this session.
And so finally, let's discuss moving forward with the preparation and submission of the fiscal year 2024-25 CRCS. So DHCS expects all documents that you'll need to complete your CRCS to be posted shortly. At this point, everything has been sent via e-blast except the program administration withhold report and the CYBHI fee schedule payment report along with the certification. And so we'll send those out. I think it's to mention hopefully tomorrow, except for, yeah. So once you have all of the documents, you can collect cost data and complete the Excel template. It's a good idea to gather your supporting documentation and create and file audit too. And so you will also complete the electronic certification process. Once this is done, you are ready to submit by Monday, March 2nd, 2026. And so the CRCS is due date is March 1st every year. But because March 1st is a Sunday this year, the CRCS is not due until Monday, March 2nd. So before we wrap up today, just a reminder that a complete submission package for fiscal year 2024-25 includes 4 items. And that is 1, a complete Excel file, 2, a PDF of the electronically signed certification form that ties to the Excel file. And remember that the total on the Excel file should be identical to the total on the PDF. 3, grouping schedules or bridging documents that support the CRCS. 4, production log identifying the practitioner's billing for services during the fiscal year. And so all 4 components must be submitted in one email to lea.crcs.submissions@dhcs.ca.gov by March 2nd, 2026. And please note that the CRCS electronic files and the subject line of the email should follow the following naming convention: fiscal year, period, NPI number, period, LEA name, period, submission date, period, CRCS, with the submission date presented as the month and then day and then 2-year digit year. So as we discussed earlier today, you will receive a confirmation receipt when your submission package has been accepted by DHCS. And then this does wrap up our check-in today, but we do have some time. So if you do have any questions at all, feel free to raise your hand or put them in the chat. Ashley, I see you have your hand raised.
Thank you. So I myself just saw the invitation for this meeting this morning, and I know some people who weren't able to attend. I was just wondering if you guys are going to schedule another check-in.
We were only planning for this one, right? For like the entire check-in. We have another one. That one's going to be more specific to CYBHI fee schedule providers. If we do receive any, enough questions or, feel the need for it, we can definitely put something together.
I think we have a question in the chat from Nadine. After the CRCS has been accepted and reviewed, how long are these submissions available for further review? So I believe it will take A&I about like 18 months, I believe, to finish those audits. And so I think it will just kind of depend with them. But does anybody else from the team want to chime in?
No, that's good. So the timeline for CRCS submission is, like Mindy mentioned, 18 months for final settlements, or really 12 months for either interim or final settlements. And if an interim settlement is issued, then it'll be 18 months for the final settlement.
Thanks. So, and then we do have a question from Angela. If we did not have any report expenditures in 24-25 fiscal year, do we need to submit this report? You'll just have to submit a certification of zero reimbursement report. And for that, you can definitely request it through our LEA inbox.
And then Gina in the chat wanting to stay informed on CRCS and other special educational related updates. Could you please let me know how I can be added to the appropriate distribution list? So there is a listserv that you can subscribe to. And so anytime we send out updated information, you'll receive those. Could someone from the team drop that in the chat for Gina? And Angelica has a question about the CYBHI one. Again, we'll have a check-in meeting and go over this a little bit more, but I can try to address it. And if anyone from BHS, the Guidehouse team, wants to add anything, feel free. And so the report is going to be by LEA and practitioner, right? The MPI of the practitioner. And so it's going to be cost for those that practitioner. Okay, sorry if there is any issue with her. So the report is going to be by MPI and practitioner type. We can discuss this more in next week's check-in meeting for the CYBHI fee schedule provider. And so thank you for that question.
All right, I don't see anything else coming in. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining us today for our check-in meeting. If there's any questions that you have after today's call, feel free to email us at lea@dhcs.california.gov. Thank you all for attending and for your questions.